Whoop.
No,
Hi. How are you?
I'm so happy to be here with you, woman. Oh, what a
Me too.
pleasure.
So I think it would be a fun way to start by telling everyone how we met.
Absolutely. Well, really, we met because of an amazing friend, an amazing
Yeah.
school friend who's the closest thing I have to a big brother in my life.
Oh,
Uh,
I love that.
yeah, he's been
I
my friend.
posted that I was in Playa Pilata and I think he tagged you and he was like, "Oh, she's really close to you."
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then I was going to a really lovely um, feminine embodiment movement class and invited you. And I was like, well, this is a nice way to meet someone. Come right into a room full of amazing women and move together in
It
beautiful
was
Costa
amazing.
Rica.
Yeah. It was such a cool experience too because I was greeted with this energy that just let me let go of any awkwardness that I tend to carry. And if, I didn't know anyone, I didn't even know you really. Like I had just met you. And it felt like I knew everyone. Like there was that kind of a welcoming energy. And it was really a special night.
Yeah, it was like such a beautiful way to connect with you. And Jim, who I trust profoundly, was like, "Oh, you're just gonna love each other." But then I kind of felt like instant sisterhood when I met you. Actually, it
Yeah,
was.
for sure.
Well, we both have amazing people that we love to be in touch with online, and I would love for my friends and community and connections to know you. So you wanna start and tell people a little bit about you, and then I'll have a turn.
Yes. Love that. So I'm Hope. I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Georgia, and then I do coaching all outside of the state of Georgia. I also do many things. I'm an artist just through and through. So I create content, I create art, I create writing, I create workshops. Creativity is really like my form of putting messages out in the world, putting light and joy and hopefulness. And really, hope is at the root of everything I'm doing. I had a very personal journey of having to come back to hopefulness. And I took all of the little pieces of my healing and integrated it into my therapy practice, which made me a vastly better therapist than I was when I just like took schooling. So I'm very thankful for every experience and that I was able to get to this point now that I can bring people back to hope.
Yeah, and gosh, I remember Jim, my friend, posting for years. Like I remember him posting when you were on part of your big journey and you had a big um,
Yeah.
social media, kind of story with your husband. I
Yeah.
remember seeing your posts and him posting about you and being like, wow, what a beautiful couple and what a powerful journey that they're going on and what a powerful healing journey. Kind of I feel tender even referencing it. And it was just such an honor and it is such an honor to know you. And it was such an honor to get to meet you and then just to know you and just to love you. Yeah.
I think it's very funny that you knew about me before you got to meet me. So like when you actually put the connection together, was there a moment of realization that happened or did you know it right away?
I think it was pretty quick when he tagged you, and I was like, "Is that the woman?" Because it'd been a few years, since those
Yeah.
posts were around. Is that the woman? So it was pretty quick. I was like, "I think," So then I just looked, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's her. Oh, how cool!" I'm, so excited to connect with her. And then I met you, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, he's right. It's like sisterhood. This kind of a lot of
I love
resonance and appreciation. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really
I
grateful
feel
to
like
it."
we both have a very similar purpose we're trying to pursue about. So let's hear about yours. I would love to.
Yeah, so I have had the great privilege and honor of teaching embodiment practices for many years, yoga and a lot of yoga meditation, some really deep feminine movement practices. I also wow, I do lots of different healing work. I do transformational coaching for leaders. I do trauma coaching right now, which feels really, God, it's been so special. I specifically have been working a lot with cancer patients for the last couple of years and doing trauma healing journeys. So that has been incredible. And I'll say more at the end, but I'm just actually about to open up a community. So I've been on a hiatus. I've been actually a tech executive for the last many years also. So I've been like healing and teaching about, I don't know, authentic relating and healing and wellness. But then I got into the tech world and loved being a startup executive and making these things happen. And so I'm really coming full circle now to like, how do we in this world of technology come back to ourselves, both through trauma healing and embodiment, um, but also through, I think, good connection and good community. So I'm actually creating an online community and I'm going to be teaching online live classes weekly, which I haven't told anybody until right now. So that's starting very, very soon online. So that's a little bit about me and how I'm bringing myself.
I love that. And I love that you and I are very much so about connection. It's something that we try to teach people, and it's something you and I try to stay connected in our very busy, full lives, living in different places. We try, and then we'll be like, oop, I have a client. And you're like, oop, I have a client. But like, connection has been something that's been really beautiful for us. And I think because we work with so many people who are trying to navigate the disconnection, like what do they do when they feel disconnected? How do they recognize that they're feeling disconnected from themselves, from their purpose, from even just like sometimes reality with like, being disassociated. And so I would love for us to kind of get into talking about that for a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. What does the disconnection look like? I mean, I think it gets so obvious. So I'm a mom. And I do a lot of looking at, conscious parenting and how to be a really great parent. And I'm appalled. I'm appalled at my own relationship with the phone. It's a constant thing that I come back to. I've been really good in my life with having a healthy relationship with addiction, which I think is partially genetic. Like I haven't had a ton of addiction. I've had some sugar addiction. Um, but screens and specifically the phone has been a harder one for me. And I think that's one version of disconnected, I think, that I noticed from myself as a parent and myself as a friend, and also from myself. Like I
Yeah.
actually start being connected to my phone. I'm like pointing at it over here. And I notice that I don't have the same quality time I used to. Like I used to sit in nature as a kid. I would sit in nature and meditate. I was
Yeah.
dorky. I was a dorky kid with a big
I was
heart.
too. I write poems about trees. So like this is another thing we have in common.
Of course. So I think that's one thing. It's like the disconnection from self, but also the disconnection from the people we love. And I think the screen is one obvious place, but there are other places. What would you say?
Yeah. Well, and I feel sometimes disconnected from myself when I'm trying, if I have a full day of clients and I'm giving and I'm holding so much space, sometimes I completely can lose myself in that. And my biggest tell when that happens is I'll get a little shaky. Like I'll just feel like, when you get low blood sugar, you're just all of a sudden you get that like shake.
Mhm.
Well, I'll feel that maybe halfway throughout my day, and I'll be like, ooh, I'm not connecting with myself at this point. Like, I've at this point given so much energy to everyone else. And I have this trick that I do where I put my hands on the lower back. Because, when you're out with like a loved one and it's maybe a crowded space and you're feeling a little anxious and they sense it and they just put their hand on your lower back and you're just suddenly like, ah. Well, I do that for myself all the time. And I didn't know I was even doing that. Like I didn't know that's why my hands always like went back there. But now that I'm fully aware and conscious of it, that's kind of how I reconnect back to myself. Because you can do it while you're on a session and no one knows.
Mm,
Like people
totally.
see people see me on video calls from like, usually the shoulders up. And I'm very animated, but sometimes when I'm listening, I'm just sitting here, stillness with my hands on my lower back,
Mm,
because I feel the need to connect with myself in that moment so that I can make sure I'm still, I want to be present with
totally.
everyone. And it's very easy once you start to kind of give so much of yourself just to disassociate and be like, whoop, I'm who knows where, you know? And so it's kind of a really quick way to just bring me back to my body.
Right.
And sometimes I'll also like feel my feet on the ground and imagine like some roots growing, even if I'm inside my loft and up far off of nature's floor, you know, I still imagine, you know, I'm being grounded and rooted so that I can really be connected in that moment.
I love that. Gosh,
Yeah.
that's great. I mean, I actually want to take a moment still in the how we get disconnected. So I love that. First of all, I'm like, ooh, I do that sometimes. I notice. I think in movement classes, I put my hands on my back like that. I love this.
I love it too. It's life changing.
And the disconnection, I also want to just, I really liked how you said that we can overgive, right? Some of us overgive. Some of my clients, I notice it's less overgiving and more like, I can't trust anybody out there. You know, maybe everybody's an idiot is like one of the stories that some of my clients have, or like I can't trust anybody, that nobody's being honest. So we have these stories from, early on in our lives. And
Yeah.
so it's like it can be addictions like a phone or a food or a substance, but it can also be the ways that we interact relationally, even with ourselves, and we get disconnected. So it's like, but how do we know? Right? Like, how do we actually know that we're disconnected? So you talked about the shakes.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you ever
one,
feel it in ways?
yeah, I mean, for me, it shows up as anxiety sometimes. If I notice
Yeah.
myself being anxious, I think that's a big one for me. Um, or overwhelmed. I'll get
Yeah, that
overwhelmed. I'm also
major.
like I'm a single mom and I have my son most of the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll get overwhelmed or anxious or even a little irritable. And that's like, okay, well, that's a disconnection because I'm obviously not in the present moment if that's going on. Also, I'll
Yeah.
get sick sometimes. Like my body is just like,
Yeah.
it's been too much. It's been too much. I've been pushing too hard. I'm good at pushing. I have a lot of
Yeah.
energy. Get it done. And so, I think it shows up differently for different people, but I think like actually getting sick is one way that I know that I'm disconnected. It's like my body calling me back, like, hello, I need attention. I've been trying to tell you and you haven't been
Yeah.
listening. My mental body is then like, need to take a break. My emotional body is like, need to feel some things. My physical body is like, you weren't listening. So now, now I'm telling you, lay down, woman.
Yeah. 100%. Oftentimes I'll feel like a fatigue in my mind, like in terms of being able to carry on conversation, because that's really a lot of what we're doing, right? We're just talking and holding space and being active listeners. And I'll find myself being more easily distracted when there's a disconnection. And so that's also a tell. Like it may not have like a physical tell, but my mind will just be like, ooh, we're going to bebop over here. And it's like, no, I kind of would really like to be present right now. That's when you make the most connection and impact. And that's when people feel like, they're really given space to change. So
Yeah.
I always pay attention to, is my mind in this conversation? And then like, our bodies, they tell us all kinds of things. Like even just a little ache in your shoulder is like, oh, wait, am I carrying a whole lot of tension here? So I just really try to be mindful about the cues and the things. So when I'm feeling a little off, I can say, oh, what do I need to adjust at the moment?
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I really want to like just to dot the I or cross the T on this. Um, I love this. The paradox of functioning well while feeling lost internally. There's this sense of like I can get so much done and I can show up and everything's looking good, but there can be times when I'm less spiritually connected, or I'm less emotionally or mentally present, or I'm less physically present. And that disconnection from hope, from self, from all the things, it starts to it wears on me. It's expensive. And
Ooh,
many of us are taught in this culture to like power through and get it done. But then we like kind of lose the deeper truth, especially with these insidious, excuse me, these insidious relationships with screens. So hopefully we're getting great content from the screens, like hopefully this.
yeah.
But then we also need to put them down, right?
That's why one of the things that I advocate a lot when I share a lot of my life on social media, but I will take long social media breaks and I always announce it, not in a way of like thinking anyone actually cares about my social media break, but as a reminder, like, hey, when's the last time you actually took a big break from your screen? And we all, especially if you're building a business, we feel so dependent upon it. And especially if you're trying to create community, like let's talk about connection and disconnection. And so sometimes it's hard to imagine walking away from something that is either building your business or holds a community for you that you don't have. And so even if it's a day, like you said, one day of the week, like I have a friend who's very intentional, like every Sunday, she's screen free. And it's just a little reset, a way to just kind of make sure she's having a really healthy boundary with it. And the way she described it was like even one day of that boundary makes the rest of her use during the week more mindful because she knows what it's like to have it without a full day.
Oh,
And yeah, I just think there's simple ways we can implement just little breaks, but you have to be intentional because this stuff is created to literally keep us on hook. It's giving us dopamine, it's giving us connection, it's also giving us distraction. Sometimes it's giving us motivation, other times it's giving us anxiety, and all of that is intentionally kept to keep you on it.
right. And then so great. I used to just turn off my phone at 8 every night. And then the first hour of the morning, I wouldn't have it on. And that was really helpful too. And I do that actually. I'm trying to do that more again now. I'm also actually setting it on silent, do not disturb on airplane, even a lot of times. When I'm with my son after school too, just like I don't want to just be sucked into my phone for something that's actually not so urgent or important.
Yep.
And I have
Yeah.
a little bit of time with him. But even beyond that, right? It's like, where do we hold our boundaries then with our friends, with our family, right? It's like, and how do we know it's time,
Yeah. Oof.
to like have a boundary? Like, actually, I can't support you right now. Actually, I need
Yeah.
to take care of me right now, or actually, I need to not do Netflix right now
Yeah.
either. Like, yeah.
With friends, I've realized, and this is going to like, I always used to think resentment was a bad word. Like, because comes from caregiving. While I was caregiving full time, I built some resentment towards my husband, and it felt very conflicting to me because I chose to be a caregiver. So how am I going to resent somebody who I literally chose to do this for? But what ends up happening is like when you ignore your needs and you're not speaking up for yourself and you continue to give and you continue to give, and then you finally do set a boundary, but the pattern's already been set, that your needs don't matter as much as his, or
Yeah.
whatever the situation is. And so then resentment to me now is no longer a bad word. It's just a cue of me not meeting my own needs. And it's never really been about somebody else doing something to me. It was more me not being in the position to continue to give. And like, so if somebody were to ask me something and I would start to feel just a twinge of that, can't believe they, that's when I'm like, oh, you know what? I think you just you don't have the capacity to do this right now. And it's usually nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
And it's 100% about what I have the energy for. And so it's interesting the way in which we take feelings and we label them as bad or wrong or like icky, but really they're all just signals. They're all here to show us something. So a lot of that is tuning into like, how do you feel? What's the emotions going on?
Okay, so then hope like all right, so let's say I'm like, oh, I'm feeling some of that ick. Somebody's like, hey, Kelly, can we da da da, or will you da da da?
Yeah.
Um, or my son is like, which I mean it's different because he's 4. So
Yeah.
there's so many boundaries to hold with him. There are some boundaries to hold with him. And because I do work a lot, I also don't burn out there too bad. But when these things start showing up, whether it's like work or friends or whatever, or even if it's the yuck of social media, like when we start hitting that, like for me, there's like it starts to actually crescendo, right? Like
Yeah.
I will get anxious or overwhelmed, or I'll be like, I'm out of balance right now. I don't feel good. I don't feel myself.
Yeah.
So like when that happens, how do you
I think
know it's time to listen, I guess? And how do you start to? you know?
And I think here's the other thing is that I think we have a hard time having these kinds of conversations with our friends. So like if we feel like we need to say no, sometimes it's easier just to ghost or and and then come back and be like, sorry, I was busy. And so I think this could be a practice. I like to look at everything that's a little bit of a challenge as a practice because we don't have to nail it. We don't have to expect that we're going to do it perfectly, but it can be a practice of having healthy conversations with your friends, and even if they're hard. And so, it's hey, you know what? As much as I would love to be able to help you right now, I just really don't have it in me. And I'm really sorry. And I hope at some point, the next time you need me or circle back, I'll be in a better space.
Yeah,
And it's learning to be okay with the fact that, sometimes we say things that disappoint people, but what's worse, you disappointing yourself, which then ends up building this weird resentment towards them, which they didn't do anything wrong. They just asked you for a favor. They didn't know you were at capacity. And if you don't communicate that, they definitely don't know. And so I think it's just a practice of learning to just speak up for yourself and learning how to say no, but doing it with like a loving way.
totally. I love
Yeah.
that. So I used to teach this practice called authentic relating.
Mm.
There was a place in Boulder that was a hub that was really the hub, I would say, for a long time. And now it's more distributed around the world, but there are some other amazing organizations teaching it. And there are a couple of things that we had related to what you just said that I really like. One is something called a hold nothing.
Mm.
So it's like if I have a thing, if I have like a little thing in the way between, like, let's say you and I are just like having a friend call, but I have a little thing, like you said something and it bothered me, or whether it was about me or about you, whatever, there's a thing,
Yeah.
maybe it's a values difference, maybe it's the way you asked me something and I didn't whatever it is, but it's called
Yeah.
a hold nothing, or a hide nothing. We would say one of those two. And a hold nothing or a hide nothing you would only bring if you actually wanted to go deeper with the person. So, like, if somebody kind of left that thing in me, but I actually don't want to go deeper with her or him, then I wouldn't. I just be like, I just don't need to engage over there so much. But if I actually want to deepen my connection, then I might be like, hey, I have a thing. I have a thing
Yeah.
I want to share with you. So that's one that comes up. It's like, I have a thing I want to share with you in the service of deepening our connection, and also to like just kind of reveal a little bit about who I am. You know,
Yeah. I love
and then
that.
it kind of pairs well with this other technique, which is like how to like kind of have a hard conversation. And it's it's like when you said, hey, Kelly, let's go for a walk. And you were busy looking at your phone, for example, I'm just making you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
making up a story here, and you were looking at your phone and then all over the place. I found myself, so it's when you, very specific example, I found myself having this experience. And then optionally, there can be a request, then I found myself I found myself feeling like you didn't really want to go on a walk with me and that you didn't really have time for me. That was my story. That's what came up for me.
Yeah.
So in the future, if you want to, ask me to join you for something, I will love it if you will wait till you're fully present to ask me. So that would be an example, right, of like how to
Yeah.
have a hard conversation. And I really always love that. I love having the formula, kind of like the
Yeah.
feedback in which we have these formulas.
Yeah. I like that too.
Yeah.
Well, and I also think, sometimes you just triggered this thought in my brain too, is that sometimes with the disconnect, it's literally feeling disconnected from somebody you love that sometimes causes those feelings too. And that's also like when you said the thing about, do I want to go deeper with this person? If so, like, let me have this conversation. I think that's just a beautiful thing because, I have a lot of friends. We're all kind of in our own realities right now and everyone's just so busy, and there's times where I will feel are we even friends anymore kind of feeling, and it's not a good feeling for me, but it's usually something that is a me experience, right? Like our perspectives are so unique, and I don't know what's going on inside my friends' perspectives or journeys in that moment, and so it welcomes an opportunity to bring some closeness to say, hey, I'm just feeling a little disconnected from you right now. I'm wondering if at some point we can have some sort of connection, like what do you have space for and do you have interest? And like sometimes it really is just asking for connection from somebody that you are missing it from. And I've actually been in the habit of practicing that since moving back to Atlanta because, I'm really trying to build community. And so when I'm starting to feel a little disconnection, I'll just reach out in a very no pressure way, but hey,
Yeah.
feeling a tad disconnected. I was wondering if we could have a chat, have coffee, something.
Really love that because you said earlier, like being comfortable disappointing people, which has been a big learning for me on my path. Like I was people pleaser hardcore my
Yeah,
younger years. Um,
same.
and I really had to get comfortable disappointing people.
Yeah,
And I think it's also like what you just said right there. It's like also being okay being disappointed.
yeah,
Somebody might
yeah,
say no.
yeah.
Sometimes we're going to be disappointed, and
As
that's
much as
okay.
we
We have to feel those things.
Yeah, as much as we want people to allow us to have our authentic responses, we also have to allow other people to have their authentic responses. And so sometimes that response is, yeah, I don't really have time to connect with you right now. And you have to be like, okay, I honor that. I'm sending you love. You know, so yeah, you're right. And I also think sometimes that could also be a cue. Like if you're feeling a little disconnected from just community, it could also be a little cue that maybe you're being disconnected from within yourself too. And sometimes, I have some connecting practices that I'll share, and I would love to know some of yours too. But, I bookmark my days these days with something really supportive in the morning and in the evening. In the morning, I want to move my body. I want to wake myself up. I want to come and be connected to the real world and not dream world, and, set some intention, which you and I have had really good conversations about. And then, throughout my day, I have little check-ins, but at the end of the day, I have to make sure I'm not storing everything, because
Mhm.
that's when I become really disconnected from me and my body and my energy. And so I do a lot of clearing practices, and I do a lot of journaling, and I actually do a lot of self massage just to sort of see if there's anything I'm holding. I get a salt bath now that I live in a place with a bathtub. And so it's really a full reconnection to me, my energy, and what's going on within me, where I'm at in my body, what do I need, what extra work would I need to do? And it's really been a very important part of my days. And I honestly didn't know how much I needed it until I reached a little bit of burnout within my job. And it's not that I'm new with burnout. I was a caregiver. I had caregiving fatigue, compassion burnout. And of course, you think once you're in a different situation, that's not going to happen again. Everything's great. I get to go out in nature. I get to have so many more breaks, but it's really actually burnout is capable in all situations. And being a mom.
Oh yeah. Yeah, totally. I was just thinking, I love that. It's just like, oh wow, yeah, I remember the days when I could do all of that stuff.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like it's different. For me, there are kind of three when we talk about disconnection. It's disconnection from people, right? Especially being an extrovert. I am an extrovert, but I'm also highly sensitive. If you're
Yeah.
familiar with a highly sensitive person. So connection with self, and for me, that's extra important because I lose myself with other people if I'm not careful. And the other thing that I think I'm amazed at how much I don't see it really held as one of the top things to track, and it's connection with nature, like
Yes.
real nature, like outside on the
Also,
earth. Even wilderness is like a whole. There's nature, go to the park, and then there's wilderness, and it's different.
yeah.
So I'm I'm a different human when I live in the mountains in a good way, or
Yeah.
deep in nature, or by the beach, or I have not too many people near me.
Yeah.
So I love what you're saying. I think it's a combination of boundaries and practices, right? It's and actually having the boundaries to have the practices. Now, as a single mom who I have my son, almost all the time, most of the time, and I'm an entrepreneur, it's been a really juicy to find
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
find those healthy boundaries and practices. And I think when there is so much going on, for me as a parent, so for any parents out there that feel full and how do I find time? it's really, it's simple, you know, it's like where can you can even, I used to talk about like the 2 minute meditation for the mom in the bathroom, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like taking a little time. It's literally, I literally close my eyes sometime and just imagine that all of my attention, all of my energy just coming in. I'm one of those people that doesn't tend innately to reside in the body. So I need
Yeah.
that. Some people kind of land there more easily. But it's like really turning the gaze in, really checking in. What does my physical body feel like? What is my emotional body? Maybe am I even tracking my emotional body? You know, my mental body, what's going on? It's so busy in this culture of mental. What's the space behind the thoughts? You know, and then my spirit body, like what is that? Like we get so disconnected sometime. You know, it's like, no, there's actually like an essence, right? There's like a life force. It's
Yes.
different than the body, the heart, the mind that is our spirit, right? It's the like, and it's like, am I connected with that like kind of impulse that lives me? So I guess I think about those things. I do whenever I can. I walk outside. I take work calls outside anytime I can. Um, I so that's a big one for me. Whenever I can, I do yoga, or I really like Pilates also. Gyrotonics when I can be in an area for that. You know, things that like keep the body moving. But for me, it's a lot about going outside and then having those boundaries with the phone and having a little time in the morning, even with my son for meditation and some really mindful time in the evening. I do my best. But then there's beyond that. I think there's the bigger things, which I love to chat with you about, you know, like there's the bigger things. So for me, trauma therapy and the
Yeah.
trauma coaching that I do has been um, one of the biggest things to actually come back to myself.
Yeah. Whenever I first stopped being a caregiver, I thought that just kind of like talking about it and then being in nature were going to be enough to get the like trauma out of my body. I would go on long hikes. I would process with friends. I wrote excessively. Like I was, working on a book and writing in journals, and I just wrote nonstop just to kind of get it out. And I would walk and I would do so many things, but I felt like things were still kind of just stuck to me. Like I would still feel that heaviness in my chest that I felt the whole time being a caregiver. And there was a lot of times I felt everything in my shoulders, like just all that weight. And I started to go back to being a therapist and getting my license again because, leaving for the 10 years I was a caregiver and the year I healed, um, I lost my license. So I had to start the whole process all over again. And so I saw it kind of as an opportunity to say, well, what do I want to do differently this time? And so I studied somatic therapy, which really wasn't as well known when I was first in that world. And just learning really to be intentional about clearing things from your body. There's a lot of like really intentional movements, but then there's like this intuitive piece to it. And so I started building like an intuitive, okay, my hips feel funny. Let me just move them, like, and, I would do the yoga poses, but then I would just do dance, or I would just freely move my hips, or like even like hula hooping, just anything. Cause I'm like, oh, I'm feeling something stuck there. And then shoulders, it's just like, oh, like, and if you remember when we were kids, we moved so freely. We were not afraid of anyone thinking we looked silly. We were just always just like, so I really tapped into that. And I realized, okay, so I need to implement all of that. Like walking is a very intentional way to move things, especially from your mind. But there's other ways that I needed to, really clear. And so I just, I researched and studied all the different somatic things. And then I sort of just touched in with myself to be like, okay, what if that feels real? And what if my like intuitive body messaging feels real? And I've sort of just kind of combined things. So when I'm working with trauma clients, that's one of the things I talk to them about is, yes, like let's process and let's work on that version of it, but also let's move it, you know? And so, yeah, it's incredibly helpful. And especially when that intentionality is behind it.
Yes, yes to all that. Actually, it's interesting this women's feminine movement practice that I teach and that I love, love, love. Actually, it's interesting because a key pillar of it is actually being in connection with what feels good. You know, it's like
Yeah.
in your body, you're moving really, really slowly and listening for what feels good. And that was actually the first practice. I taught yoga for so many, I still teach yoga. I love it. I mean, it
I
puts
love
me in line with my spirit self and my spiritual and my deeper self in ways that nothing else does other than meditation, which is a different version of that.
you.
Um, Phenomenal. But I don't think I ever was really fully resting in my body until I did this movement practice that yeah, it was like I had to slow down enough to actually feel what felt good.
Like that
Yeah.
slowing down enough to actually feel, because that is it. Like it's, you were talking about not always having time. It's like we don't always create space. And that spaciousness just really kind of is how your body was able to like communicate to you, okay, this feels good. This is like, I like that because you're right. Like slowing down is one of the most important things we can do to come back to presence, to come back to connectivity, especially of nature. You know, when you slow, if you're just taking a power walk, you're not noticing all the flowers, all the trees, all the birds. But if you slow down, you'll be like, oh my gosh, those birds over there in the tree. And it just brings a different sense of awe. And it's like, it happens in our bodies. Oh, I love that. Sorry, just had to like,
Yeah, no, I love it. Exactly. It was this practice, and it's what I love about teaching it. It actually does that. It tend to move trauma, even though it's not, I don't market it as a trauma. But I get that feedback from women that do it. It's like, wow,
yeah,
they do trauma, but they also find what feels amazing. And there's something about that slowing down intentionally, whether it's a meditative walk or it's a, really slow movement, noticing what feels good, or it's slowing down in your yoga and your breath, which I do also teach. Yeah, I guess it's that slowing down, I think, is
yeah.
one of the cruxes of coming home, right? To ourselves, to our hope, to our hearts, to our beings. It's like, how do we slow down enough, but consciously, intentionally, not like
Yeah.
slowing down into the race of our thoughts, but slowing down, and maybe sometimes, in a place where there's space held for us, maybe it
Yeah.
is you or with me in a practice, or maybe it's with yourself in nature. um, Maybe it's
And
with
you know,
yourself in your hands and your body.
yeah, now that you say that, you kind of triggered a realization in me that I don't even know that I noticed. Is that a lot of times when I'm working with clients and I see the rapid, just the thoughts, the anxiety, the storytelling, the everything, I'll often very intentionally slow it down. And I'll be like, okay, can we take some breaths? I have them blow just to kind of like, I'll be like, we need to get rid of some of it. And, the breath, just getting them to take a breath in between all of it sometimes helps them to be able to say, oh, I'm racing. I'm all over the place. Let me ground. Let me, and so
Back to the
it's
root.
funny. Yeah, back to the root. And it's funny because I don't even, sometimes we just do things so innately with our clients. And it's not until you're having a conversation to be like, oh, yeah, I do that. And I, I recognize why I do it for them is because I often need it, and so part of what I love about my job, and I'm sure you might relate to this, is that how life mirrors to us. So we'll experience something and then we kind of witness it in other people and we're like, oh, I know precisely what you're like. I know really well how to kind of help you navigate through this. And we may not ever understand the intricacies of everyone's like experience, but there's enough of the things that we can relate on a human level
Mhm.
that we're able to say like, ooh, I can just feel that you're storing this like really heavy experience. Let me help you slow down and have the tools to kind of like get that out of your body. And so many of us know how to walk people through that because we've had to, you know.
Totally. And there are so many ways too, right? I do this trauma coaching that's online, but it's phenomenal. I mean, I have, many cancer patients that have gone through this that have told me, I'm so grateful. I'm so
Yeah.
grateful that I got cancer because of the healing I've gone through. And I'm always like a little like, wow, that's powerful thing to say, you know? Or there's like, you know, for me, it's like either through movement or through coaching is generally well, I do some other healing work too, but it's like there are paths, right? There are the different ways. I
Yeah.
think, you know, it's like we all can find our different ways that we can move through it. And it's either like opening up to start sharing and talking, or it's actually slowing down from the constant circle of sharing, kind of depending on which end of the spectrum you're in, and coming back.
Yeah.
And I think, like, how would you say, Hope, that you know, maybe from the outside when you're witnessing your clients, but also from the inside for yourself? What are your thoughts on like, what it's like to be in that place of like interconnection, you know, of like
Mm.
in a really good, true space? How do you like, what are some of the telltale signs? What's it like for you?
So for me personally, whenever I feel it, I can always feel it whenever I can actually just sort of stay in my energy and my presence. And I'll notice because I do online therapy as well. I do in-person workshops, but like it's interesting the way in which in-person and online translates really equally, which is really thank you. But I can notice that my energy of being like peaceful and grounded and okay and spacious ends up being contagious to my clients without me really even having to always get them there them like through words. And so just my presence sometimes, and that's when I can tell I'm like really in, I'm really connected, I'm locked in, I'm here, I'm present, I'm grounded, I'm feeling good, because I'll just sort of see it mirror naturally. And it's from me just kind of like modeling, okay, staying calm when they get a little bit erratic or whatever it may be. And so then I guess for them, it's like you can see it just sort of create a bit of okayness within them so that at the end of the session, they'll just say, you know, I feel much better. Like, and you know, and my thing is I'm always trying to help people feel like they have the capacity to manage whatever's coming up.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's like I'm really trying to empower them to no longer run away from all of it, but like turn inwards. Let's face it. Let's see where it is. Let's feel it. Let's heal it. All the things. And, you know, when they end a session and they're like, I'm going to be okay. This is going to be okay. Like, I got this. That's when I can sort of see it just translate into them too.
Love that. I guess for me, it's, I mean, there is something in the down-regulated nervous system, which is like geeky talk for feeling really calm and spacious
Yeah.
in myself and really present and slowed down. Um, and I feel when I'm really connected to myself, whether it's through movement practice, you know, like embodiment practice of yoga or movement or whatever, or it's really like quality time outside or even quality time and connection, you know, whatever it is that I'm doing. Um, yeah, I think there's a pervasive sense of trust. Like
Mm.
I feel like a very like just a true ease in my heart and my body and my being. And it's like my spine feels clear, as my yoga teacher would be like, my spine feels upright, but also the width of my heart feels expansive. It's like my being feels present and I'm just like, I feel like I'm really tasting the moment, you know, like I'm
Mm.
actually present. You know, it's like we
Yeah.
only get so many of these in this body in this lifetime. And I mean, yes, it's like the yes. The yes is fully alive. And the experience of, you know, my yoga teacher would say it's, you know, are you in love? And I bring this in my classes too, you know, are you in love right now? And in love is not like, oh, I'm in love with this person, you know, or oh,
Yeah.
I'm in love with my son and being a mother, which I am, but it's like in love. It's like not resisting life. It's like the contractions of like worry or anxiousness or overwhelm or this or that or whatever your thing is, or depression or the irritation or all the things are not actually there. I'm not resisting all the sensations of my life and my world. I'm actually just in a space of like love, of I'm here. and I'm
I
yes
love-
to this, and and I feel like I am digesting and feeling life in that kind of place. So that's, I think, for myself. And then for clients, yeah, it's like you can see sometimes it's things like, it's like the way you can see, right? It's like I'll see their whole beings, kind of like all the little areas of tension, like if it's online, which is a lot these days, right? A lot of all of our, it's like I see like a lot of the tension kind of relax in their face, and I'll hear it in their voices. And it's like, yeah, like, oh, I see the thing, whatever, if it's trauma coaching, or I like, yeah, like they'll say things that are that are congruent with a sense of
Yeah.
being more
Yeah.
connected with themselves and with the moment. But there's also a way that you can kind of like that. I feel like I see the like shedding of the kind of habits, of the kind of contorting, disconnected habits. See, it's like you can see them kind of shed a little bit, and
Yeah.
it's so satisfying to see it, to feel it, right?
Mhm. I like that. And, I think you said something earlier about, when the cancer patients come to you, they'll say they're very thankful for the experience because it kind of taught them so much. It reminded me of like, my husband had ALS, and if anyone didn't know, that's part of the story. And he felt like it was his purpose. And I remember the day he told me, he said, I would have never reached as many people without it, and it didn't make it any easier of a journey or an experience. But sometimes when there is that purpose behind it, it helps you figure out how to navigate it in a different way. And so, it was still hard and it still beat us up, but then we decided we were going to share it as a way to spread awareness. And we decided we were going to make art out of it. And we just started to like kind of transmute it in a way. And so I think the other thing about connection was that a lot of people will connect with you as a human in whatever form you're like trying to connect with people when you're really just sharing authentically. And it's no longer like, hey, I want to show up as this like perfect form. It's like, hey, I'm like here trying to figure it out as a human being, just like y'all, but also I want to offer you this love in this space. And so I think remembering that kind of authenticity has been something that I still want to try to implement into my current life. And, even though I'm no longer sharing the active journey of being a caregiver, because it's been 5 years since I've been doing that. There's a lot of stuff about healing from all of that I've wanted to be really authentic about sharing. And so I think sometimes that authenticity being shown gives people permission to kind of connect with themselves in that way too. And so I feel like in a world where the internet sometimes makes it hard to tell what's real versus what's just for show, the more we can show up as our authentic selves, the better connections we can build, and the more we're allowing people permission to end up feeling connected with their most authentic selves.
Totally. Yes, yes to all that. And I think, I mean, it's part of the journey of healing. It's funny sometimes, when I'll have, clients or students in class or whatever comment like, oh, but I thought I was through that. And how am I like back to, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you know how many decades I have been on this journey? And I just had like, one of the hardest moments of my life in the last month. I try not to like cry right now in video, but like it's hard, and that's the thing about being a human and on a growing journey. It's like things don't stay easy.
Yeah.
It's not like you're one and done, like, oh, I healed all of my resentment with my ex, or I healed
Yeah.
all of my pain from this experience from childhood or this experience from last month, or whatever it is. It's
Yeah.
we're always, it's like first of all, there are always layers to each thing, right? Usually there's another deeper layer, like we're spiraling like up in our own evolution, but also deeper into our own healing of like excavating a deeper layer. And that's part of it, right? It's like, and as long as we want to be on a path of growth, and there is a healing in that path of growth, hopefully, if you're, kind
Yeah.
of putting it in a good balance, because you can also circle the drain and just obsess. But I think there's ways to do that. And like, yeah.
I oftentimes give people a visual with this. So, when you look at a piece of wood, and let's say you took a screw out, you took the screw out and you can see the screw indentations in the piece of wood. So it's just like you see the spiral. And so let's say you or the human worked really hard to get up to the top, and then something happens and you fall back in. Well, now you're like, oh my gosh, I have to go up this whole spiral again. Like I already did that. And it's like, well, no, now you probably have a ladder. Like if you actually think about the tools that you built from the first time of going up, you probably have a ladder. Just pull the ladder out. It's okay.
Totally.
And maybe the first round was dark. Now you have a flashlight. Maybe the first time there was no clear path and you were just going in circles, but now you've been on this path before. So you know exactly the direction to go next. You know what to do. You know your practices, you know your things. And so I think to think we go backwards is always like a disservice to ourselves, because it's like, you're right. We're just learning it in a deeper level, but we also have the tools. And that's when we get to actually witness the growth, because we can say, oh, the last time I was here, I handled it this way, but this time I was here, I handled it this way. And I'm able to see that these practices actually did work versus seeing it as like a bad thing.
Totally. And I think when we're healing from trauma specifically, like one of the goals that I like to, support people with is to be triggered less. By triggered, I mean dysregulated, like your whole system's like not okay from a thing that just happened that might be reasonable and might not be reasonable. Like you're having a big reaction and you can't just bring yourself down within 2 minutes. That's what I mean by triggered. So one of the things in the trauma coaching that I do, I imagine for your trauma therapy, right, is like hopefully you start having less triggers or less intense triggers. But after a little while, as you start really, kind of clearing out your own deeper emotional content that's unprocessed, all these kind of layers of shit that's driving you from early in your life that you didn't realize was driving you to be a perfectionist or or anxious or a people pleaser or whatever the thing is, all those early patterns, as we clear them, we get less triggered. But then you start understanding like, oh, I'm triggered. What is this pointing to?
Yeah. You stop seeing the trigger as necessarily bad and you see it as information.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's a lot of times where I try to tell my clients, so what if the trigger was here to empower you instead of knock you down? Like, what if you reframe the perspective of a trigger? Once they can get at least a little bit more of the regulation and the trigger doesn't set off a panic attack, you know what I mean? Because we can't even work on reframing it if you're having a panic attack every time you're triggered. So once we get to a point where it's that, but you're still being triggered, it's like, okay, well, what information is it showing you? Is there something further you need to learn from this? Is there, and also sometimes triggers are a sign that maybe we need to disengage with somebody or something. It's just, to me, it's a lot of information, and it's learning to manage it in a way where it's also being able to kind of, like inform us, maybe is the right word thinking about, but
yeah. Yeah. Excuse me. So let's talk about, so people do their work, right? Like, let's say somebody's like, I haven't done trauma therapy and maybe I'll consider doing trauma therapy or trauma coaching or some work with my trauma. What's the benefit? So one is less triggers, right? That's like part of what I think you and I are both here to do, is help people come back to themselves, be less triggered. But what about in the world?
Well, and I think one of the things that surprised me most whenever I was healing my trauma, and I end up seeing in a lot of my clients, is you have to then create containers for joy, for the good, because it's like, it's so not normal to experience when you've gone through something, to just have that levity and that light and that joy and that delight. And it's like, how do we then move from a space of just being in this constant state of survival or this constant state of like feeling on edge or needing to be always be in the healing state to actually tapping back into joyfulness and allowing that in our body and like learning how to actually fully have that in your body.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when a client comes to me, let's say I've been working with them for several months and they'll come to me excited about something. They'll be like, oh my gosh, Hope, guess what? You know, I did this great thing. I went on this adventure and I really enjoyed myself and I'm so thankful. And you can just kind of like see that genuine embodied joy in them. That's when you can see, okay, this is working. Like, and it's not to say that they're going to stay there forever because that's not sustainable. You know, life happens, things happen. But when we start to allow that kind of energy in our life again, and it's not constantly working on the triggers, working on the healing, working on the anxiety, working on this, it's like now we actually have space for joy. We do feel thankful for things.
Yeah, you know, and it's amazing. I'm always impressed too. Like, yes, space for joy, absolutely. And I'm always impressed by like by my clients that are like, wow, you know, I've had this toxic dynamic with my wife or my husband. And now that I'm doing this work, it's changing.
Yeah, I love that.
Like she's not even changing or he's not even changing, but like I'm doing this work and it's like actually my marriage is significantly better. Oh, I'm doing this work and actually my relationship with my brother or parents is better. Or like, oh, I'm doing this work, I feel great and I'm actually okay holding this boundary now and I really see it, but it's
Yeah.
like this like suddenly life tends to get like actually kind of easier and more pleasant. There is more space for joy. I think the
Yeah.
other thing is that as we eventually come back home to ourselves, there's also a permission field. Like I can actually be in my body this fully. I can be in my, for me, I did a lot of like dimming and shrinking as a child.
Yeah.
It was my like coping mechanism from, bullying and all kinds of dynamics, both at home and at school. And yeah, so like for me, it was like healing, and just being like, I can take up space.
Yeah,
And I'm doing
absolutely.
it from a place of actually like a fair amount of healing. So then it's actually a permission field. It's like, oh, I can actually feel good in my body because it would be really easy to just like criticize this thing and that thing and da da da, but like actually I can just love. I can love
Yeah.
being in this body. I can love being here in this moment. And I think that the more of us that do this, it's not only like nice for our lives and the people around us, it's
Yeah.
also a permission field for humanity because there's a lot of other permission fields out there. Permission to close, permission to be addicted, permission to be angry, permission to be depressed, permission to be anxious. And it's like, actually, what about permission to be more integrated, like for ourselves and for our community to just like
Yeah.
have space, and people sometimes even get uncomfortable in it, like the
Yeah.
people around me that are like maybe not working their edges. It's like, yeah, okay, it's good. I notice it around people that have done a lot of work. I'm like, oh, I can feel where I have my
Yeah.
enclosures, and that's okay. But like, let's be permission fields. Like there's something there. It's like a different kind of act of service to
I
be like,
love
I'm
that.
going to do this in my human experience, like selfishly and for the people I love and in the community.
Yeah. I like that. I remember somebody told me probably in the midst of my caregiving, whenever I started, Steve and I started doing the dance party thing, we'd have a bad day, something would happen, and the energy was chaotic. And I was just like, this is before I even studied somatics, before I even understood what I was doing. I was just like, you know what? We need to change the vibes. And we would just have a dance party. And we started to film them and share them online because I was very intentional about not just wanting to share like the deep, dark truth. I wanted to share that we were also still living. We were trying to find joy and we were trying to just enjoy the moments in between. Like the space in between was always the thing I would talk about. I'd be like, everything's okay right now. I'm going to enjoy it instead of being freaking out about what's coming. And so I remember somebody commented on it, was like, first of all, I don't know how you could be a messenger of hope in the thing that you're going through. And I also don't understand like how you could possibly have joy while you're watching your husband die. And it made me realize how much we don't hold space for both. Like the reality of this situation is really awful and sad and heartbreaking, and there's not enough things happening for ALS, and it's frustrating, and it's just so, but also he's still here. There's this stuff that's going well. Like we got to meet cool people and have cool opportunities, and we made cool art and we had cool projects. So it's like, we have to learn to have the capacity for both. And that's what I think hope is. It's standing firmly in reality. You see all of it. We're not putting our head in the sand to be like, oh, I don't want to see any of the bad things. It's seeing all of it, but also remaining in that presence of things could get better. I have the capacity of handling this. You know, this could be a moment that life is just giving me to level up. You know, it's not letting go of that little bit of what if this actually all works out? Like, what if this is going to be okay? It's not pretending nothing bad is happening. It's recognizing that some crazy things are happening, but also it has the potential for some really good things to happen, and you being okay and you being able to have capacity. And so, yeah, I think the more we can live in an and space, I think the more you can see people that are like really integrated. Because it's like, I don't think healing is pretending that everything is rainbows and sunshine. You know, healing is learning to allow the feelings or emotions or the realities or whatever it may be, but not forgetting the joy and the gratitude and the possibility.
Totally. Totally. Like it might even be okay sometimes to, like, death might be okay sometimes, right?
Yeah. And, you know, Steve was 100% okay with dying because he realized that he came and fought really hard. We shared great awareness. And then at one point he was like, you know what? COVID's here. Everything's about to change. People can't come in my house freely anymore. I'm done. And he was 100% okay with it. And it was his choice. It was what he did. And like, it's not that we even changed anything. We didn't give him any extra medication. We didn't turn off his ventilator. He just literally in his mind was like, all right. And once he made that decision, he passed away within 24 hours. Yeah. So it just, I think he taught me a lot about the human resiliency and the human spirit. And it's my favorite part of what I do is watching people's resiliency and just watching that spirit just be alive in people. And, that was my favorite part of watching my husband's journey, because he was like, nope, not giving up, not giving up. And then once it finally made sense for him to like be at peace and leave the body that was just torturous to him, he was like, okay, I've done my service here and I'll see you all in the realm,
And then we get to grieve, right? Then we get to grieve the people we love, and then we feel how much we love them.
Yeah.
There's this brilliant teacher, Martine Prechtel, has a talk on grief and praise. And there is no grief without praise, and there is no praise without grief, right? Because we don't praise anything without knowing that at some way, somehow, there's going to be a loss of it at some point. And we don't grieve anything without praising how much we have loved it. And I've just always loved that frame. And it's so true, right? Like we lose things and we lose people in life and we go through hard times. And it also gives us this range, so beyond the grief and praise, it's like this range of living. It's like letting ourselves feel the suffering with less resistance in such a way that we're like accepting reality, and then also opening to what is also beautiful, right? And or feeling the beauty so deeply that you can actually feel the suffering of like the like momentary nature of all of life. It's like just allowing ourselves to have real range, and then watch that gift our lives. All that's the thing. It's like the more we connect with our bodies, the more we connect with our own hearts, the more we deeply heal, which is not, again, like the circle of over processing. And it's not the like contain, it's like actually if we move through a good healing cadence and find it in a healthy community, then we get to really like, it's like living the best life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just being really alive. And I think that's how I feel about it. Like I think death teaches this reverence for life if we allow it. It's like, I woke up today And, like taking care of somebody who had ALS, little by little, he lost bits and pieces of his body. And it just makes you realize, like, oh my gosh, I can eat, I can chew, I can swallow, I can move my hands, I can get out of bed, I can breathe. And it's just all these simple things we just take for granted because it's every day, we just get into these, okay, well, I woke up and moved my body because that's what I do. But it's like, but do we actually just sometimes stop and be like, thank you, body. Like, I'm so thankful for everything you do for me. You like hold me, you move me, you help me connect with people, like you take me on adventures, let me bebop, you help me create art. Like, it's just having a different reverence for life. And again, like we were saying, it's really the fullness is like, yes, we feel all of it, but we like, because we let ourselves feel really sad or heartbroken or rubbed or whatever, we also feel the joys and the excitement and the connections.
It's all there. And we're all
I
there.
love this conversation. I'm not surprised that you and I just like we had a loose plan, and we said let's just go back and forth and see where we go.
So good. It's so
I
good.
love it.
Yeah. I just, yeah, I think I wanted to acknowledge just in everything we were just saying, like, there's a lot of uncertainty right now and a lot of division in the world, and I've been really maybe extra present with it since I was in Israel when the war started. And this last round in 2023 in October. And I was actually living there for a while. And there's something for me these last couple of years that's been extra around metabolizing kind of the shape of humanity and the just kind of like, where are we? Where is our humanity and how do we reclaim it? And I think that's for me what's coming up as we're talking. It's like this reclamation. It's like, first of all, I had to stop reading and watching the news, like for me, especially on that topic, because I had, dear beloveds, in the middle of this, war experience. And and so many people that I was like too intimately tracking. And I think that's like, there's so many things like that in the world. And it's like being intimate with what we grieve, but also being intimate with like reclaiming like who we can be. Right. And like you said, and like having the fun and like having the dance parties with ourselves. It's like I get older and my joints ache a little more. And I'm like, you know what? In 20 years, I'm going to be like, wow, I wish I could feel that good again. So how do I let myself enjoy being in this body, like you were just saying, and enjoy being with my son, and just like literally do the best I can do, and then also be strategic around the other things in the world that I want to impact, and the ways that I want to bring my voice, my love, my care, and some light in a world that's got a whole lot of right now. It's also got wilderness. It's got just insanely beautiful places and flowers and people. And there's something stunning inside of humans. And the more we can, like, let's bring it out and let's
Yes.
have some fun. Like, don't forget to have fun. Yes, dance party with dance party with you, dance party in the woods.
Yeah.
Actually, that's one of my favorite dance parties. It's in the Bahamas, in the ocean, with these amazing women and the speaker on the boat. And I was like, oh yeah, and I was pregnant.
I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah, where do we bring in our joy? So thank you for this. And yeah, what a gorgeous journey. Well, let's talk about if people want to connect, like we both have these just wonderful things,
Yes.
inviting people to.
Well, my website's comingbacktohope.com. And so if you're in the state of Georgia, you can work with me. If you're out of the state of Georgia, Hope from Earth is where I have all my coaching. It's where I have my YouTube. It's where I have my blog. So you can get all of the things I've written throughout all of the years. And, I'm living in Atlanta and I am building a lot more in-person things. And so I'm having an in-person workshop with my friends and they're going to do some Reiki and we're going to do some like somatic movements. And then I'm actually having one where we're walking in nature and we're just kind of having a deep process, clearing, journaling, meditating. Like I take them through all these little journeys as we wander around. And so, yeah, I think I'm just trying to build more and more of a in-person community as well as continuing to build my online community. And that way I can just keep connecting.
Hope you some
What about-
in-person stuff sometime. Maybe.
Yes.
Well,
What going on?
I was going to say, first of all, I recommend just Hope has such a beautiful and prolific presence online with her videos. And as you see, this woman, there's so much life. I mean, I feel, like I feel, just in touch with my Hope from our conversation.
I love that.
I'm in touch with my Hope and my beloved friend Hope, all the Hope. So
I love that.
And I have invited Hope to come in and we'll do something in this new community that I'm forming that I haven't talked about yet, depending on when you're watching this video. If you're watching it right away, then you're just getting the initial unveiling. I am curating an online practice community. It's initially going to be me teaching yoga live once a week. And recording all of those classes so people that want to can become members of this community. It's a very reasonable monthly investment and come do live yoga classes. But also I'm going to be inviting, including Hope, some very, very special people to come in and offer classes, workshops, and other things in that community. So you can work with me that way. You can also, women that want to know about this feminine embodiment movement practice that I offer. There's also a weekly online version of that. You can message me, DM me about that one. And then I do this trauma coaching online, and we'll have more in-person events coming also, especially in Costa Rica, likely this winter. There are several things getting stirred up, so definitely reach out. We'll put some links below where I post this. And just such a pleasure. And I know we're going to do something in my community online, but I really do think that at some point, maybe there's going to be a workshop or a Hope and Kelly retreat or something, maybe in Costa Rica where we met.
Definitely going to be in Costa Rica. Like, how we both have such a connection to Costa Rica and it's done so many things for us. And I think it would make perfect sense for us to go there. And especially because we love the land and we understand the land there a bit. So it would be really, and I think both of our communities are ready for that.
Really, let's get away, have a little Costa Rica hangout. Let's have some fun. Let's go deep. Let's have some fun. Let's move our bodies and
Costa Rica is
come back to love, come back to all the good.
Like nature of Costa Rica is just so she just hugs you the minute you get there. I immediately I think she's attached her waters to me, and that's why she just keeps being like, come back to me. And I think everyone that's ever really experienced Costa Rica can say that there's just a magicalness to it in the nature element of it. So not only do you get us, which is awesome, but you would also get that magic, which I wish we can't bottle it,
So stay tuned for further collaborations between us. It's such a pleasure, woman.
Love you so much.
I love you.
Also love all of you watching so much.
Oh, so much love. I'm so excited to connect. Yeah.
All right. I'll be linking everything for everybody. So.
Okay. Big love.